Boy, did I get into a disagreement with my cardiologist the other day. Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. So for those of you that don't know, I turned to carnivore after I had a heart attack in 2015. It was November 2015. And I decided eventually to start cleaning up my diet. That shows how deep my carb addiction went, because I had a horrible diet and it took me years to be able to be consistent on a carnivore diet. I ended up having open heart surgery 9 years after my heart attack. They put stents in my heart after the initial heart attack. And at the time, it was about 8 to 10 years, they said. Most people get 8 to 10 years with their stents. Some people a little more, some people a little less. So aside from my open heart surgery, and that all went well overall, I had a bit of a complication in the hospital with low blood pressure, medically induced, because they had me on extreme blood pressure meds and I didn't have high blood pressure to begin with. So I understood they wanted to put me on something while I was in a bit of a delicate state, but they went too far, and I was 77, I think it was, over 57. It's in one of my old videos exactly what it was, but it was somewhere around there. Basically, it was dangerously low. Now, that comes into the story later. So after my surgery, I have regular visits with the cardiology team at the hospital I had my heart surgery done at, and it's about a half hour, 45 minutes away from where I live now. Now, I'm off all my meds except aspirin. So aside from that, everything's good. My numbers are good. I talked to a cardiologist afterwards and he said, "You're off all your meds?" And I said, "Yeah." So this is a team of cardiologists, and the one cardiologist partly probably just didn't want to argue with me and saw that I had a really good point. My blood is usually thin to begin with, so I'm just taking aspirin every now and then, and I kind of play it by ear. But all my numbers are good on my ECG. All my numbers are good with all my blood work. My blood pressure is great. Everything's good. So, do I need to be on any meds? And he went, "No, if all your numbers are good, then you don't need to be on any meds." Now, something that's been happening to me for the last few weeks, and it's also why I haven't really been doing videos, is I haven't been feeling well. My breath has been extremely labored, and it all started when I was riding my bike home. That's probably the third time I rode my bike home from work, and I have 3 hills to go up. So I talked about this in one of my old videos. And with these 3 hills, it's harder after my surgery than it was before my surgery, believe it or not, because I had no symptoms before my surgery. And I was making good progress with my bike rides home. But afterwards, after sitting around for 3 months and not really being able to do anything except for some squats the last month, it really had a real impact on my lean mass and obviously my cardiovascular health. And I rode home in pouring rain. I mean, it was pouring. And the next day, I developed a pain. I thought it was kidney stones. I went to the hospital for it. Everything looked good heart-wise. And they said, okay, well, they said your kidney stones passed already. I had blood in my urine. And for the next week, I had extreme muscular tightness all the way around my ribs and my core muscles. It was really difficult to breathe deep, and both to exhale and inhale at the deeper levels, it would make me cough. Now, I had a bit of a runny nose, and I thought, I wonder if this is some kind of cold. But either way, after a week, it went away. And then the next week, I got another, what I thought was a kidney stone at first, blood in the urine, but it didn't present like my regular kidney stones, and neither did the other one. So that's why I was confused, but I did have blood in my urine. So I thought, well, maybe this is a kidney infection. I didn't go to the hospital this time. It wasn't nearly as painful, but it still restricted my breathing a lot. It took about a week for that to go away. That was over the first 2 or 3 weeks. And after that, I had some breathing issues. And this would come on whenever I would exert myself. If I walked up a big flight of stairs, if I did too much walking, and I just got a bit more of a workout than I intended, both with the length of walking as well as the speed of walking. And later that day, I'd have breathing issues. If I walked up too many stairs, I'd have breathing issues. If I did a slight workout, I'd get breathing issues. And the only thing that was helping was anti-inflammatories and muscle relaxants. It was getting to the point where I was starting to get concerned that this might be heart related, because this could be anything from a blood clot to pericarditis, because anti-inflammatories were helping. But the one thing that helped the most was aspirin, high dose aspirin. And so that was making me lean that much more towards something like a blood clot or pericarditis. Anti-inflammatories I noticed helped. Now, heart healthy anti-inflammatories, colchicine, that's known really largely in the gout world as an anti-inflammatory. Barely did anything for my gout anytime I ever took it, but it seemed to help this time around when I was dealing with these breathing issues. It was very labored breathing, to the point where at one point, just getting into bed, I remember standing in front of my bed for about 10 minutes or so, just looking at it going, I don't want to get into bed, because I knew as I lied down on my back, my breathing would be labored for like the next 10 minutes. So I've had pericarditis in the past. This didn't quite feel the same. That's when I started to be concerned about it being something related to the heart. So I called the cardiology team. I explained it all to a nurse, and she said, well, this could be anything. And I said, yeah, it could be anything, but it could also be heart related. And so she was going to book me an appointment 2 weeks from then. And I was like, well, don't you think I should get something sooner? Because this seems pretty serious. Like, I can't even walk up a flight of stairs at work. I have to stay on the main level. I'm concerned about like getting to work and back every day. I'm concerned about walking up the flight of stairs to my door every day. So this is a bit of an issue. It's not emergency serious, but I feel like it needs to be a little more serious just to get in for an appointment sometime soon. So begrudgingly, she got me in for about half a week later, and that was fine. But when I got in, they did all the testing. They did an ECG. They checked my blood. They did all these things. They checked my blood pressure. Everything was fine. And by this point, it was gone by, it was only a 1 out of 10 by this point, and it wasn't bothering me too much. Now, that's because I noticed the anti-inflammatories, the colchicine really helped. So I explained my whole thing to my cardiologist that was part of that team. So you had to see different cardiologists each time. And this guy was big on the fact that I wasn't on my medications. He said, that's why you have this. And I said, well, how do you, like, what is it? Like, if all my numbers are good, why is this an issue? Like I'm off my meds, all my numbers are good. Why do I need those meds if all my numbers are good? He said, well, your cardiac output is 45%. And he said, well, they did that when you were in the hospital. And I said, well, when I was in the hospital and they took that number, it was after I passed out a dozen times, which is in an older video of mine. I'll see if I can link it in this video, but it's probably about a dozen videos back. And after I'd passed out a dozen times, they called the code blue because they found me passed out in the bathroom, chest down over the toilet. They were scared it was my heart, so they sent me for a high contrast ultrasound after they made sure all the other numbers were good with my heart. They gave me an ECG and they looked at everything else, and I told them it's my blood pressure because my blood pressure was so low all day. So either way, they sent me for that ultrasound, and it said my blood output was 45%. Sounds really bad, but normal is more like 55%. Before my surgery, I was at 65%. And so I said to the doctor, I said, I don't think that number is accurate because my blood pressure was so dangerously low. I said, I had that test within a half hour to 45 minutes after they balanced me out and they got me stable. And I said, I don't think that's an accurate reading because I don't think going into the surgery reduced my cardiac output from 65% to 45%. Goes against what cardiac surgery is supposed to do. It's supposed to increase your cardiac output. It's supposed to give you a better quality of life. I said, could we redo that test? And he said, no. He said, you were supposed to be on these medications. You went off the medications. That's why you feel the way you do. And I said, I don't know if that's it. This could be anything from a virus, like a cold or influenza, because it's extreme breathing issues, or it could be anything to pericarditis or a blood clot. I said, I feel like we should rule out some of the important things as much as we should rule out the light things, because I'd hate to get diagnosed for something light when there's also coincidentally something more serious going on. And he refused to give me any tests and any medications that I wanted, because I also wanted the colchicine. I needed a prescription for the colchicine because I had run out. And he said, no, he wouldn't give me any. I said, you're not going to give me an anti-inflammatory, even though I told you that really helps get rid of the rest of this restriction in my chest and the breathing issues. And he said, no, I'm not giving you another one. That was a temporary prescription. I'm not giving you another one. And I was like, all right. And I said, well, what about the ultrasound? And he said, no, I'm not giving you another ultrasound. We already have the number here. I said, yeah, but that number is like almost 5 months old. I said, when's my next ultrasound supposed to be? And he said, 6 months. And I said, well, we're 5 months already. So what if we just push it up a little bit? And he just didn't like it. He was pissy because I wouldn't go on the meds. And he said, this is the protocol. When you have open heart surgery, we put you on a protocol of medications and you're not taking them. That's why you're feeling the way you do. And I said, look, I'm not against being on my meds. And this is where we really started to butt heads. I said, I'm not against being on my meds. I want a diagnosis before you put me on one of those meds. I want you to show me an accurate number, current accurate number, that's telling me what my problem is to justify you putting me on one of those meds. The fact that you guys put me on blood pressure meds against my recommendation, I said I didn't want to be on them, but you guys insisted because it was such a delicate place. You guys overdid it, and it gave me all these issues with passing out, with literally passing out and causing a cold blue in the hospital. So I said, this is pretty simple. I just want a test to justify whatever medication you're going to put me on. It's not asking too much. And he refused. And he was just like being kind of pissy. To him, I was being disagreeable because I wouldn't go on any meds. And I was like, oh, even after I explained to him I wasn't against medications, but you have to diagnose me with something before you randomly put me on any medication. So I said to him afterwards, I said, so you're not going to give me anything? You're not going to do any tests or anything? And he went, no. And he was just being pissy. He was pissy because he was trying to literally bully me, because he started getting condescending. And that's when I got my back up a little bit. He started getting condescending because I wasn't going on the medications that he wanted. So I said to him, are you telling me that you're going to write in your chart after I leave that you had a patient 5 months out of cardiac surgery who had extreme breathing problems, very labored breathing problems, and you weren't going to send me for something as simple as an ultrasound to see what my cardiac output was? And you're not going to put me on any anti-inflammatories for when I need them? At that point in his charts, medically speaking, he's the one that's now liable. He has a patient coming in, and even though I was refusing to take the meds he wanted me to take, and I wasn't even refusing, I was just like, give me a recent diagnosis and I'll take them. And this puts the liability on him. He knows now at this point, if something else happens to my health and I end up in emergency, he now has to justify why he wouldn't put me on any meds or even send me for any simple tests. To that, he said, fine, you can book the test outside and they'll do it, just go to the window. So I asked him if I could get it in my home city because I live 1 minute away from the hospital in my hometown. And I have to drive 45 minutes to get to Hamilton. And I said, is that possible? And he went, no, you have to do it here. And I was like, oh, what a dick. I just thought, like, what a dick. This guy's being a pissy dick. So I thought, oh, well. So I went out and I thought, I'm not booking my freaking appointment here. So I walked out, I went home and I thought about it for a little while. And I thought, you know what? My cardiologist who actually did the surgery has been nothing but great. His receptionist has been nothing but great. So I called his receptionist, told her what I went through, and she was like, oh, that's ridiculous. She said, yeah, I can get you in 2 days. I wish you would have called me sooner. And she said, we're always happy to see follow-ups with our own patients. So now we're at last Friday. I went in to see this cardiologist. He said, so what's going on? And I told him my story about the bike ride. And the next day I had these extreme breathing issues and it's been intermittent all this time. And he listened and he said, okay, well, we're going to send you for an x-ray first of all. He said, we're going to do that before you leave the hospital. We're going to do some blood work and we're going to send you for a stress test. Have you had a stress test yet? I said, no, not yet. He said, well, we usually do one at the 6-month mark, but we'll just move it up a few weeks. So I have a stress test coming up, and he also booked me for the high contrast ultrasound for my heart to see what my blood volume was. And I didn't have to ask for any of those things. I just told him my scenario, and that's exactly what I should have gotten for service the first time. Rule out the important things. I said, while we're at it, can we do a blood test to see if I'm fighting any sort of infection? Just because this could be an infection that I have. I don't know. It's a really odd situation. And he went, yeah, of course. So all that was done, and it was simple. This guy was great. He wasn't being agreeable with me because I was being some backseat driver, which you're never a backseat driver in your own healthcare. Remember that. You're never a backseat driver. When I told my mom this whole story before I saw the second cardiologist, she said, why do you have to argue? And we just come from two different generations. We're back in her generation through the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. You could pretty much trust your doctors, and they weren't the pill pushers they are nowadays. Nowadays, you really have to watch with your doctors and make sure that you're not on more medications than you need. Medications have side effects, and some of them aren't as good as they promote them to be. Take cholesterol medication, for example. Go look at Dr. Oliveira on YouTube. He's a cardiologist. See what his views are on cholesterol medication. So either way, I'm getting all this figured out. At this point, I'm feeling 100%. I even rode my bike yesterday, and I feel pretty good. I didn't have any after effects of it. So this is why I haven't been doing my videos for the last few weeks. I've just been sort of down and out. So that's an update on where I've been the last few weeks. I haven't been able to do that squat challenge that I was doing. I did that all through July, but it was very early August. I started to have these breathing issues, and I only made it a few days into August doing my squat challenge. So I haven't really been able to keep up with that. But now I'm at the point where I could start doing it. Now, I'll give you a review of what that squat challenge was like when I did it for that solid month and half a week, what I felt the benefits and negatives were. But aside from that, I'm feeling good. I'm waiting for these tests to come in. And I said to the doctor, I said, I'm not sure if these tests will do anything at this point because I'm feeling so much better. And he said, you know what? It's good to have a baseline anyway. And that's the kind of doctor I want. I want a doctor who's going to put me on the meds that I need to be on. And he's going to give me the tests that are applicable to the symptoms that I have. Not someone who's going to sit there and cross his arms and act like a jerk. There's nothing wrong with advocating on your own behalf with your healthcare. You always need to question. It doesn't hurt to ask questions. Anyone will tell you that in life. It's not a bad thing to ask questions to understand. A good doctor will find a way to simplify the answer so the common man can understand it. Now, I have more education in the healthcare system, so I can understand the medical jargon, no problem. And when I ask a question that doesn't make sense when they try and just give me some medical jargon, I can sift through it and say, yeah, but that didn't really answer my question. And they don't like that. And typically the guys that don't like that are the guys that are in their 60s. They get their back up because someone's questioning their authority. It's like, there should be nothing wrong with trying to understand what's happening with your healthcare. So tell me your story. How many times have you had issues with doctors when you're just trying to understand the situation, or you're asking questions, or you raise a valid point and they're dismissing you? Thanks a lot. Take care.